morning. As the old timers say, every very productive day starts at the fuel tank. One of these mornings I'll get it figured out. I skipped a day of filming, so while we're fueling up the tractor here this morning, I'll give you a quick update on what's going on. These Don Mario 3756Es here on this field where I left you the other day, they made 79 dry, pretty good soybeans. We moved over here to this field. These were Pioneer 37A18s. They made 73. This farm got less rain and has a little bit more marginal soil here on the terraces, so about in line with expectations. Then we moved up here to this farm, same bean as that railroad farm, 3718 Pioneers. They made a whopping 65 bushel an acre maybe. Pretty poor, although again, very poor soil, so it makes sense. I'm fueling up at home alone because I ran about 5 or 6 days without ever coming back to the fuel tank. Pretty good efficiency there. Combines are going to slowly make their way over here east of Interstate 57. Dad's already cut a sample first thing. That's where we're going to be at. Easier than cleaning them. Just made it across Interstate 57. We are headed right where that combine is. Pods break open easy. Tad bit on the wet side, probably 15-16%. Some of these are going to go in the bin, so we could probably start at that. Although you really still like them to be sub 15 before you cut. They're getting close. Looks like we've got the high dollar help here today. My mom's here. One of the more complicated and or depressing parts about harvesting soybeans this time of year is that most of the time, unless you just got a big rain, first thing in the morning, your soybeans will have the correct moisture content percentage-wise to cut. They'll be sub 14 to 15% first thing. However, the plants and the stalks themselves are too wet to properly harvest and thresh. Basically, although you could cut because you're not going to get docked or have to worry about storage on the beans themselves, you can't really cut because the beans don't want to cut yet. Breeze moving in, sun shining, gonna be another warm day. I say we're gonna get a lot knocked out unless something goes terribly wrong with our combines. Combines are rolling, so that means it's probably go time. It seems like the dust is always blowing straight towards the interstate when we harvest these fields. Oh well, someone's got to keep the car washes in business. Looks only mean so much when it comes to soybeans. These ones in particular, though, look phenomenal. We'll see what the yield is when it's all said and done. I'm rooting for them. The field we're working on now is fairly large. It's right at 90 acres. The south half of the field is a pretty productive mixture of soils. The north half is a little more marginal. There's some rolling ground to it, some light soil, some terraces, which probably aren't going to perform that well this year. Overall, though, the beans look like they're going to be fairly decent. The soybeans actually are a topic I want to talk about because we're doing something unique here that we've never personally done on our own farm. We've changed things up a little bit. Now, it's not super unique, it's just something new for us. Historically, for soybean maturities, we plant a lot of 3.0 beans to 3.9 at the latest. A few years ago, we did plant a 4.0. Overall, though, most of our beans have been in the group 3. This field, we tried something a little bit out of our normal range and planted a Pioneer 4284
Enlist soybean. That is a 4.2 maturity bean.
In layman's terms, it's just a longer maturing bean, probably marginally at the end of the day, especially by the time we get to them.
We always like to plant a wide range of soybeans that fit our area. Typically, different beans fit different fields better, and of course, we like to spread them out so they're not all ready at one time. If it doesn't rain during the fall like it has for the last few years, the beans can get rather dry. If we had 3-1 beans out right now that we were still trying to cut, they'd probably be 8 or 9%. We'd lose a lot of that moisture, weight, yield we would get. These 4.2s didn't even start turning till 3 or 4 weeks ago while we were cutting other beans. So they've been a perfect fit so far, and it looks like they're going to yield well for us. My dad said when he drove by them a million different times that he's never planting a 4.2 again because they weren't turning as quick as the other ones. Yet when push came to shove, looks like they were ready just on time.
And who knows, if they yield really well, we may plant even more of them next year. I don't know if we'll ever go beyond a 4.2, but the trend for me seems to be on both corn and soybeans to continue to push the maturity in the growing season. A couple years ago, we wouldn't even plant 115-day corn. Now we're thinking about planting 117-day corn. Beans are the same way. We planted a 4.0 for the first time a few years ago. It sounded crazy. Now we've got a 4.2 out here. So we'll see what we can keep doing. Here doing a little artistry on the windows with the dry erase marker. Perfect way to entertain people and keep notes on your tractor window. What are you drawing, buddy? Combine's about got this wrapped up. We're gonna load another truck and then get ready to move the head carts. The fun part about loading soybeans on our trailers here is that it's almost impossible with the dimensions to load enough volume of beans on there to be legally overloaded in terms of weight. So it's always a fun little game of how much can I fit on there. The answer is a lot. Look at that. They don't teach that. Oh, perfect load. Little dribble off the top. Oh man, I'm about to sneeze just looking at that dust. Not terribly far of a move for us, just gotta hop over the interstate and we're at the other field. There's not a lot of good spots to hook up a draper on this one. You gotta do what you gotta do, but I'm definitely not gonna get my bonus today. At the other field, and you can see the combines are just right across the road there. But you gotta go all the way around to get to it because of the interstate. I can't even see that. All it takes is a little communication with the trucker. I didn't want to run over the side, so he's gonna back up and go that way. The wind should carry it around. The dust, that is. Still pretty dusty, but that's a lot better. 4284 E's made a little over 75 bushel an acre dry on this field. Relatively speaking, I think that's a pretty impressive yield for this specific farm and this very dry growing season. we may actually plant some more of those next year. Kind of dive into the yields a little bit more. You can see how all of the terrace bottoms performed very poorly, especially on the high ground. And then just overall, once you got to the higher elevations, the beans didn't do as good. Given this amount of variation and poor performance in certain locations, the fact that that field made 75 is pretty darn astounding. And here we are right now across the road.
I'd say these beans are dry too. As a matter of fact, I'm not sure we have a single field of beans at this point that isn't dry. One of our worst farms in terms of soil composition, especially on a dry year. It can yield with some of the best of them if it rains, but that's the story of a lot of our farms. And there wasn't a whole lot of rain in the forecast this summer.
Actually, let me correct that. There was plenty of rain in the forecast this summer. As a matter of fact, early this spring, because of the El Nino weather pattern, water temperatures out in the ocean, they said it was going to be a very wet growing season. However, they could not have been more wrong. Every rain we were supposed to get just never came to fruition. The meteorologists are batting like 2 for 50 this summer. That's how poorly they forecasted everything, which obviously it's not a science, but disappointing for a farmer when you don't get the rains you need. Dad's going to supervise the topping off of the bin. I'm going to go ahead and run his combine. This combine says these beans stink, and this thing's usually a little bit on the high side in terms of yield, so these may be 50 bushel beans out here. Yeah, they look even worse from up in the combine cab. If the yield monitor and the visuals don't convince you enough, the fact that I'm running 6 miles an hour right now, not carrying over and not running out of power, ought to be indicator enough that these are not great beans. Okay, assuming that these soybeans are as poor as the monitor is indicating, sub 60 bushel beans for us is a very, very bad average yield. Given our climate, our growing season length, this is not what we want to see. Definitely the result of the dryness this year. I just want to put the variability of this season into perspective. The field literally across the interstate from us, although a different variety of soybeans, made 75. This field, about a half mile to the south, made 75. I guess those made 75, these made 76. A field a half mile to the east made 72, and these ones look like they'd be lucky to make 60. The beans to the south were the same beans as this one. We had a field about 2 miles to the west go 79, same exact beans as this one. The ultimate question is, what gives? The first thing you can probably attribute this to is some locality with rainfalls. There's not consistency with rains. A lot of years where you have enough rainfall, it doesn't make that much of a difference, but when you're short on rainfall, if one field gets a ½ inch and another field gets 2 inches the same day, that could be a big difference maker. I would say that that probably has something to do with this. Maybe this field did not catch the 1.5 inches we got in August on a few other fields. At the same time though, it's hard to really pinpoint that. The secondary factor, which is probably the main cause, is the difference in soil type we have in this area. Not every field is made of the same soil types. Not every soil type handles dry weather the same. Where we're located right now, south of Lakeland College, south of Mattoon, right along Interstate 57, is what is called the glacial moraine. This glacial moraine I'm referring to is what causes this variation in topography and soil type here south of Mattoon. Formed those very rich prairie soils to our north because it kept plowing under prairie grass and then coming back, and repeated that over many years. But here, we're at the end of that. We did not have the blessings of that continuous tillage. This soil is more weathered. It doesn't have as much organic matter incorporated into it. Some pockets are very fertile here to the south. However, for the most part, there are very, very light clay soils that need rainfall. And I think that this farm in particular is sitting on top of a localized hill that has very, very poor soil on a dry year. That's what you're seeing. long story short, the lighter your soil is, the less fertile, the less organic matter, the more importance there is placed on frequent rainfalls. This ground can yield really well if it rains regularly. If it doesn't rain for 3 weeks in the summer, that's enough to take a lot of top-end yield off of light dirt like this. Some of our really rich soils back closer to the main farm can go months without rain, so long as the soil was saturated beforehand, which it was this year, and that can take us a long ways. Here though, on this farm, you need frequent rainfalls if you want to raise a good crop, which we're not. As opposed to viewing certain fields and areas of this crop as a failure because it's not up to expectations, I think we really should just put into perspective how lucky we've been the last few years to continuously raise such high average crops because we've had rain. It's not always going to be perfect, especially because we don't have irrigation. We can't control that. Definitely got to be grateful for the years where we're raising 80 bushel beans across the whole farm. The S780 claimed that its average for what it harvested was sub 58 bushels an acre, so we'll see what the scales on the cart say. Okay, it's Sunday, so we're probably nearing the end of the day, but it seems like I gotta clock back into my day job because the grain cart's full. What's really funny about the variation in this area is you've got this field that almost behaves like a sandy soil. Like I said, it needs a lot of rain to be good. And then you go a quarter mile to the southeast here, and we've got a field that's like a black muck, stays super wet. We've got all sorts of tile on it. It's the low area, holds all sorts of water. You go a half mile to the east, you have an entire field of Drummer Flanagan soil, or a combination of Drummer and Flanagan, which are some of the most productive soils you can find in Illinois. So a lot of variability here. The bad news is that the beans were in fact that bad. That's the dry average right there, 57 bushels an acre. The good news is that the combine was spot on. It said 57 and change, which is about what they made. You know, you gotta have the bad ones to really appreciate the great ones. That's how I feel about my days sometimes. This is probably our poorest field average in 4 years maybe. We've had farms with 30–40% water damage replant that have done better than this. Hey, would you look at that? The Epoff boys. It's not really surprising because I'm driving right through their neck of the woods. There's Katie with her combine, so I'd assume the other combine is somewhere getting hooked up right now. There it is down yonder. We'll get a spot cut open and then we'll pull the second one in. Probably 3 to 4 miles north of that very terrible yielding farm. Same exact variety here, Pioneer 37A18s, and these ones actually look fairly decent. I mean, they're not going to be bin busters. Surely these will make 70 based on looks alone. Just shows that variability again. It's Sunday, the elevator's already closed, the bin's about full, so I don't think we're really going to burn the midnight oil by any means. Based on the way both combines are lined up right now with their heads in servicing position, I'd say it's just about quitting time. Hello, dogs. Hello. Nice to see you. The stars are somehow aligning for us this evening since we're quitting a little bit before we normally do. It's just before 7 o'clock. Allie really wants to take Lenny to see the Paw Patrol movie. That's only out for this week. No rain in the forecast. Typically on weekdays we work 7, 8, 9 o'clock depending on what the situation is. Meaning today is about the only day I think we can make it happen. And it looks like we're going to go take off and do that right now. I know it's not the most farm related thing in the world and harvest is everything this time of year, but you got to spend some time with the family doing what they want. Now, I don't think Allie specifically wants to go see this movie, but Lenny loves the Paw Patrol, so we're gonna go. I'll check in with you guys all tomorrow. As always, I greatly appreciate every single one of you continuing to tune in and support the channel. Your viewership means the world to me. I'll catch you all in the next episode. Until then, make sure you like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you want to see more, and comment down below if you have any questions. You know I love to talk about farming. Have a great day, everyone. Peace!